Good morning, Mr. Chaskowson. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Yes, are we ready?
We are, Chair. But before we get to today's business, I would like to correct an error I made in last week's questioning of Mr. Ramosabudi. On Friday evening, it was brought to my attention that in my questioning of Mr. Ramosabudi at the end of the session on Thursday, the 26th of November, Thursday's session, I unintentionally referred to McKinsey as opposed to regiments in relation to kickbacks paid to shell companies set up by Salim Essa. And Chair, the transcript reference to where I accidentally and incorrectly referred to McKinsey is day 13, page 198, line 5. Day 13, page 198, line 5. So I need to apologize for my error both to you, Chair, and of course to McKinsey, and I need to set the record straight. So I'd like to do that and just make it very clear.
Yes.
There is a spreadsheet on pages 590 to 597 of Annexure VV4. That was the spreadsheet on which I was questioning Mr. Ramosabudi. That spreadsheet is a spreadsheet of revenue generated by the Regiment's Advisory Unit, not the McKinsey Advisory Unit. The kickbacks to Salim Essa shell companies reflected on that spreadsheet were kickbacks to be paid by regiments, not by McKinsey. In relation to that spreadsheet, I questioned Mr. Ramosabudi on the SAA working capital contract and referred him to the kickback in respect of that contract reflected on page 596 of Annexure VV4. Regiments worked on that contract with McKinsey, but the Commission has found no evidence to suggest that McKinsey was aware of any bribes or kickbacks being paid by regiments in respect of that contract. I just want to set the record straight on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chair, Mr. Mpofu, might I just have a word with Mr. Mpofu,
yes,
who represented Mr. Ramosabudi as well?
Yes, yes, yes.
Mr. Mpofu was just wanting to indicate that in his capacity as Mr. Ramosabudi's representative, he's noted the correction.
Yes, okay, no, that's fine. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Chair, there are quite a few legal representatives present today for today's evidence and for what was planned for today, and I wonder if everyone might put themselves on record before I start today's proceedings. One of the representatives, Mr. Cockrell, is here with us on Zoom.
Well, I think let's take it step by step. I think your next application is for the postponement of the evidence of the other witness who was going to give evidence today, Mr. Williams, I think, and the other witnesses who were going to give evidence tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday. If there are legal representatives representing those, then we can have those placing themselves on record before you move that application. But those who may be representing certainly Mr. Gordhan and whoever else in regard to Mr. Gordhan's cross-examination evidence, then they can place themselves on record when we get to what's going to happen today with regard to Mr. Gordhan's evidence.
Thank you, Chair. There are indeed representatives of the witnesses coming, Mr. Williams and witnesses coming later or due to come later in the week.
Yes.
There are also representatives of interested parties in relation to those witnesses. And
yes,
I wonder if they
place on record.
I wonder if they might place themselves on record at this point.
Yes. Well, maybe you. Okay, yeah, you might do it from where you are if your microphone works. If it doesn't work, you might have to come to the podium. Or maybe let everybody come to the podium, then.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning.
My name is Leago Matabate, and I appear on behalf of Mr. Sipho Masego.
Yes.
He was an implicated party in Mr. Williams' statement.
Yes.
So we just want to place on record that we reserve our client's rights to cross-examine
Yes.
Mr. Williams should the need arise.
Yes, okay, all right.
Thank you,
You
Chair.
will have to apply for leave
Yes, Chair.
if you want to cross-examine.
Thank you,
Okay,
Chair.
all right. Okay, thank you.
Morning, Chair.
Good morning.
I am Advocate Patrick Ngujana. I am here with Mr. Ethel Williams. We have been informed that there will be this application to have his evidence postponed today
Yes.
on account of the evidence leader was not available
Yes.
to deal with this evidence today.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, I see Mr. Cockrell on the Zoom screen.
Oh, okay. Mr. Cockrell?
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Chair. Sorry, Chair, I'm on the Zoom feed, but I can't see you.
Yes.
I place myself on record. I appear for Bain & Company South Africa Incorporated. It's one of the entities that is implicated in Mr. Williams' evidence.
Yes.
Chair, my client has applied for leave to cross-examine Mr. Williams and has also applied for one or two other things. So may I simply place myself on record for purposes of those applications? Thank you, Chair.
Yes, well, I am not aware of the application for leave to cross-examine, but that doesn't mean the Commission hasn't received it. Things start somewhere before they get to me, but it's good if you make it, bring it to my attention.
I'd been engaging with Mr. Franklin before he took ill, and he is obviously well aware of that application.
Yeah.
We have been discussing some of the logistics, but obviously all of that has fallen away. in
Yes.
physical health, Chair.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I think Mr. Mpofu wishes to speak to you.
Good morning, Chair. It
Good morning, Mr. Mpofu.
looks like I'm having a busy morning today. Chair,
Yeah.
we would also like to place on record that in relation to some of the witnesses who were meant to be here for the rest of the week, particularly Mr. Van Lochrenberg, Symington, Lakay, and I think Mr. Williams as well. We were informed of some of them on time, others only came last week. So we intend to apply for cross-examination.
Yes.
At this stage, I'm not sure if it's for all of them,
Yes.
but I will discuss it with Mr. Franklin.
Yes, okay. No,
Thank you,
that's
Chair.
fine. Okay, all right.
Chair, that then brings me to the business of the day, and as several of the legal representatives have foreshadowed, I need to ask for a postponement of the evidence of Mr. Williams that was due to be called later today, together with the evidence of Mr. Vlok Symington, who was due to testify tomorrow, Mr. Van Lochrenberg, who was due to testify on Wednesday, and Mr. Lakay, who was due to testify on Thursday. The reason for the requested postponement, Chair, is that the evidence of leader of the Commission, who was dealing with all of these witnesses whose testimony relates to SARS, is Mr. Alistair Franklin, SC, and Mr. Franklin has come down ill yesterday and is not in a position to come to the Commission or to be present in the Commission today, and may well not be able to be present this week. We would ask that the evidence of those witnesses be postponed until, and to be set down at later dates as soon as we know what the condition of Mr. Franklin is and when he will be able to take that evidence. Specifically in relation to the witness, Mr. Williams, I'd like to apologize for the very short notice that he received of this postponement application, because he has in fact come up from Cape Town yesterday to be here today, and he wasn't notified before he came up. But I assure you, Chair, that this state of affairs happened only in the course of yesterday, and the Commission did its best to notify his attorneys as soon as it became clear that Mr. Franklin was not going to be available today.
Okay, no, that's right. I take it that all the other parties who will be affected by the postponement of the evidence of the witnesses you have mentioned have no objection to the postponement.
None that's been communicated to me, but maybe those persons present here can be asked if they have any.
Just say if there is any of them who is opposing, they can raise their hand. If they don't, then I will take that there is no opposition. There is no hand being raised, so there is no opposition.
It has been confirmed to me that Mr. Williams has no objection to the postponement.
Yes, okay, all right. So the hearing of the evidence of the witnesses that Mr. Chaskalson has mentioned, which was going to happen later today in the case of Mr. Williams, and tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday in regard to the other witnesses, is postponed, and other dates will be fixed for them to come back and come and give evidence. Okay, thank you very much, and all inconvenience to all concerned is really regretted, but as Mr. Chaskalson says, the evidence leader who was going to lead those witnesses has fallen ill, and that only happened yesterday. Okay. Mr. Chaskalson.
Thank you, Chair. Apart from the evidence to be led by Mr. Franklin, Chair, today was scheduled for the cross-examination of Minister Gordhan by Mr. Mpofu on behalf of Mr. Moyane.
Yes, I see Mr. Gordhan has joined us. He was, I think, not on the screen when I greeted everybody. Good morning, Minister Gordhan.
Good morning, Mr. Person.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Chaskalson.
And Chair, as this cross-examination is cross-examination by Mr. Mpofu and not by Mr. Franklin, we do not seek any postponement of this cross-examination from today. However, Chair, it will be necessary for me briefly to lead Minister Gordhan on his clarificatory affidavit, which he filed after he testified and which hasn't yet been the subject of oral evidence. And I ask, because we now have the whole day open, I ask that this matter might stand down until after the tea adjournment so that I might briefly prepare in relation to leading that evidence and confer with Mr. Gordhan and his legal representatives to give them an indication of where I intend to go with that.
Well, first of all, I thank you, Mr. Chaskalson, for stepping in to assist in the absence of Mr. Franklin, at least with regard to Mr. Gordhan's evidence, because if nobody had stepped in, we might have had to consider postponing the cross-examination, obviously with everybody being heard first. But the fact that you were able to step in at very short notice has assisted us to be able to continue with Mr. Gordhan's evidence and his cross-examination. But certainly I will grant you some time to look at issues that you need to look at. And I confirm that all legal representatives affected by this have no problem with the matter being stood down urgent for some time for you to get that chance. They have confirmed that to me. So we are at 28 minutes to 11. Shall we say we will resume at 11:30?
Thank you, Chair.
That'll be fine. That's fine. Mr. Mpofu? That's in order. Yes. Ms. Leroux? That's in order. Okay, all right. Mr. Gordhan, we are going to adjourn until 11:30. Mr. Franklin, who was going to be the evidence leader, is not well, and Mr. Chaskowski has stepped in to try and assist so that we don't postpone your evidence or the cross-examination. But he needs some time to look at certain issues because he has not been involved in the matter until, I think, yesterday. So we are going to adjourn until 11:30. We adjourn.
Thank you, Chair.
I think. Good morning, Mr. Gordhan. Can you hear me? 1, 2, 3. Good morning, Mr. Gordhan. Can you hear me? They say it's fine on this side. It must be on his side. They can hear you. Yeah, I check his volume levels. You can't hear him. Can't hear him. Is his microphone off?
Yes, Mr. Chaskelson. I see we don't have Mr. Gordhan on the screen as yet. Oh, there he is. Okay. Yes, Mr. Chaskelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Minister Gordhan.
Good morning.
Minister Gordhan, I'm here briefly to lead you on your clarificatory affidavit that you furnished to the Commission in response to a directive of the chairperson. Can I ask you to turn to page 781 of bundle N3?
Before we do that, Mr. Chaskelson, he needs to take an oath or affirmation. Please administer the oath or affirmation.
Please state your full name for the record.
I think he can't hear you. Can you hear us, Mr. Gordhan?
I can hear you, Chair, but not any. I can hear Mr. Chaskelson.
Oh, okay. My registrar is going to administer the oath or affirmation. We'll need to see whether you are able to hear him.
Yes, I can hear you. Let me try to hear the registrar.
Yes. Oh, okay. All right. Yes, Solicitor.
Please state your full names for the record.
No, he can't hear you. What's wrong with your mic today?
Please state your full names for the record.
Pravin Gordhan.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed affirmation?
No objection.
Do you solemnly affirm that the evidence will give will be the truth, the whole truth and nothing else but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, I truly affirm.
I truly affirm.
Thank you. Okay, all right. Okay, Mr. Chaskelson.
Thank you, Minister Gordhan. Can I ask you to turn to page 781 of bundle N3? That's the first page of your, well, can you confirm that the document that starts there and runs to page 791 is your clarificatory affidavit?
Let's just get the bundle right. I've got in front of me N3A. Is that the one you are talking about?
Chair, that would be, I have one consolidated N3, Chair. I imagine it would be N3B, because I have been told.
Yeah, I know that his clarificatory affidavit is not in this bundle. It is on the other one, the other big one that has got some blue dividers as well. Yeah. What's the page number?
781 is the page number that I have.
We'll say this one is bundle N3B, and the other one will be bundle N3A. Yeah. Okay, all right. Yes, Mr. Chaskelson.
Minister Gordhan, if you can go then to page 781, it's N3B. And I'd like you to confirm that the affidavit that runs from 781 to 791 is your clarificatory affidavit.
I confirm.
And that the signature at page 791 is your signature.
I confirm.
And can you confirm the correctness of the contents of that affidavit?
I do.
Minister Gordhan, I'm going to take you briefly through certain parts of that affidavit. Can I ask you first to go to page 782, paragraph 5, where you explain the circumstances in which you furnished the affidavit, and can I ask you briefly to read into the record paragraphs 5 to 7.
Paragraph 5, Chairperson, I submit this affidavit as directed by the Chairperson of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into allegations of state capture, corruption and fraud in the public sector, including organs of state, in brackets the Commission, on 6 May 2019, requiring a short affidavit to clarify, and in quotation, whether in stating in his statement of 11 October 2018 that Mr. in brackets Tom Moyane, in brackets again Mr. Moyane, acted maliciously in laying charges against him and others, he meant that A, in laying the charges against Mr. Gordhan and others, Mr. Moyane was motivated wholly or in part by, or he sought to advance the objectives of state capture, or he was abusing a legal process for his own personal goals that had either nothing or little to do with a legitimate complaint relating to an alleged crime, end of quotation. Paragraph 6, the chairperson's directions go on to require that, and in quotation, I succinctly state what, in brackets I, meant when, in brackets I, stated that Mr. Moyane had acted maliciously in laying the charges against me, in brackets, and others. At paragraph 7, at the outset, I emphasize that I have never alleged that Mr. Moyane was motivated by when he laid the complaint that led to criminal charges being brought against me, which were subsequently withdrawn.
Can I then ask you, Minister Gordhan, to turn to page 786 and paragraph 22 of your affidavit?
Yes.
And there at the start of paragraph 22, you concede that you have no knowledge of Mr. Moyane's state of mind when he laid the complaint, and then say that you've considered his explanation for his conduct that he provided to the Commission. And from paragraphs 21 through to 22.1 to 22.7, you then set out what I understand to be the inferential reasoning upon which you submit that the Commission should conclude that Mr. Moyane sought to advance the state capture project. Would that be a fair summary of 22.1 to 22.7?
Yes, that would be fair. And of course, if I may add, Chairperson, that in all of these matters, it is Mr. Moyane who is implicated in state capture, and he should give his version of various events to the Commission, in addition to whatever emerges from my cross-examination, so that the Commission has the full benefit of whatever he has to say. But the advocate is right that paragraph 22 and 22.1 to 22.7, he has presented as a fair summary.
Can I ask you to read into the record paragraphs 22.1 to 22.7 so the Commission and the public hear what the core of your reasoning is in relation to the conclusions you want the Commission to draw against Mr. Moyane?
I will do that. In the introductory lines under paragraph 22, Chairperson, the following is stated. To be clear, I have no knowledge of Mr. Moyane's state of mind when he laid the complaint and have considered his explanation for his conduct that he provided to the Commission. At 22.1, in essence, he states that he acted as a reasonable person would have in the circumstances in which he found himself as Commissioner of SARS. 22.2, I, however, disagree with this and personally believe that Mr. Moyane did abuse legal processes for reasons already explained in my evidence. At 22.3, I say this based on my experience of his defiant attitude and vilification of me following my reappointment as Minister of Finance, which I believe was aimed at forcing or pressuring me to resign from that position so that the capture of National Treasury could proceed under a different minister. At 22.4, to use the words of the chairperson's directions, I therefore do mean that Mr. Moyane, and I quote, was motivated wholly or in part by, or he sought to advance the objectives of state capture, end of quotation, and that, in quotation again, he was abusing a legal process for his own personal goals that are either nothing or little to do with a legitimate complaint relating to an alleged crime, end of quotation. At 22.5, I believe that Mr. Moyane's, in quotation, personal goals, while he was SARS Commissioner, included the advancement of the state capture project. At 22.6, this belief is founded on what we all now know about how, in quotation, the failure of integrity and governance at SARS, soundly evidenced by the change over 4 years, has certainly compromised the performance of its core function of collecting tax to the detriment of the country at large, end of quotation, as found by Justice Nugent in the Commission of Inquiry into Tax Administration and Governance by SARS, what is called the Nugent Inquiry, pages 477, paragraph 19 of the final report of the Nugent Inquiry. At 22.7, I turn to highlight briefly certain relevant findings by Justice Nugent below, which form the basis of my belief that Mr. Moyane's actions as SARS Commissioner were a part of the state capture project. Just give me a second, I'll find the right page.
Sorry, Minister Gordhan, I don't need you to proceed beyond that point. You then go on to quote certain passages from the report of Justice Nugent. Well, that report is a document which we all have. I do want to take you to paragraph 28, which is at page 789. And there you state, in my statement to this Commission on 11 October 2018, specifically in paragraphs 104 and 127 to 127.4, I recorded numerous examples of the acrimonious nature of Mr. Moyane's rejection of my oversight while I was Minister of Finance and his insulting attacks on me following my reappointment as Minister of Finance in December 2015. This provides the context to and the basis for my belief that his laying of a complaint against me was something other than the actions of a reasonable commissioner. Can I ask, apart from the evidence to which you refer by cross-referring to paragraphs 107 and 127 to 127.4 of your statement of 11 October 2018, are there any facts on which you rely in your clarificatory affidavit for the inferences you seek the Commission to draw that are within your own personal knowledge, as opposed to facts that are in the public domain?
So I didn't hear the last part, as opposed to?
Facts that are in the public domain or facts that other witnesses may testify to that are not within your personal knowledge?
Chairperson, it's very difficult to draw the distinction between what might be in the public domain and what might be to my personal knowledge, because over the years, those two have in fact merged. But I will try my best to address the question.
I'm sorry, maybe I can assist. The reason why Mr. Chaskowson is drawing a distinction between what you may have personal knowledge of and what's in the public domain is because facts that you have personal knowledge of are matters that generally you can testify about. Facts that may be in the public domain, but of which you may have no personal knowledge, you may not be able to testify in regard to whether they are true or not. So I think that's why he's making that distinction. Is that correct, Mr. Justice?
That is correct, Chair.
Yes. Okay, all right.
I will certainly attempt to do that, Chairperson. Thank you for your guidance.
Yes.
I mean, one reference, Chair, that I could make is the meeting that Deputy Minister Jonas and I had with Mr. Moyane sometime on the morning of the 14th of December 2015, when I left him with, and the Deputy Minister as well, I left him with 10 guidelines and requests. And amongst those 10 were firstly that the issue of governance over SARS must be a matter that we should discuss. Secondly, that I would like the opportunity to review what was then being called the new operating model. Now, outside of my knowledge, there's of course information about various meetings with Bain and Company at Nkandla and elsewhere, very much prior to Mr. Moyane's appointment at SARS, and the implications that could be drawn, including, and this is again outside of my knowledge.
Sorry, Minister Gordhan, I must ask you to confine yourself to matters within your knowledge, because otherwise the evidence and the cross-examination may stray far beyond the bounds of what will be helpful to the Commission.
No, thank you for the guidance. So the second matter, as I was saying, is the new operating model, which I said that I would like the opportunity to review, meaning that this was something foreign to me, and one would like, together with the Deputy Minister, to understand what the new operating model was and how it was being implemented, and that various appointments that were intended should actually be halted. The third matter was the question of requesting that if SARS was involved, or any person in SARS was involved in the leaking of information to, in particular at the time, the Sunday Times, that should stop, because that is not in the best interest of SARS. Then the fourth element is that as far as communications go, that SARS should limit itself to tax and customs and related matters of administration, and that if there was something extraordinary that SARS was required to comment on, that consultation should take place with the Deputy Minister of Finance before SARS got involved in any other matters. The fifth or sixth issue was the question of endeavoring, that we should all endeavor to put in place a strategy to regain public confidence in the institution. And I think it's fair to say that it is my personal experience in government that the standing of SARS and the capability of SARS in collecting tax and customs revenue and stopping illicit trade has been compromised over that period of time. Then there was a request that SARS officials should not stray into political matters and should desist from political commentary. And then a further request that it was important that SARS officials familiarize themselves with broader economic issues, because the relationship between SARS as an important fiscal institution and, for example, the work of the Treasury or the work of the Department of Trade and Industry or the economy more generally is an important one to understand, so that there's a context that officials at SARS have for the kind of work that they do, in addition to, or to place into context the various administrative functions that they actually perform. And lastly, Chairperson, we emphasized, the Deputy Minister and I, the importance of institutional integrity. Again, returning to the theme that I made reference to earlier on. Those were issues that were confirmed by Mr. Moyane in an email that was discussed in the first meeting. Apart from that, of course, there's the question of the alleged charges, which in fact I've learned more recently is a complaint that had been lodged by Mr. Moyane at the Brooklyn police station. And initially, Chair, I'll give you the references if you need them, from your own findings in the, I'm not sure what you call it technically, judgment or ruling.
A ruling or judgment, yeah.
You make, I beg your pardon?
Yeah, you can call it a ruling or judgment. We know what you're talking about.
Okay. All right, thank you. Not being a lawyer is I need to get the terminology correct.
Yeah. But there were two. You may be referring to the first one. You must just tell us which one you are referring to.
Yeah, it's the April 2019.
Okay, that would be the first one, yeah.
In which there's a quotation from some document that Mr. Moyane has submitted to the Commission, in which it is said that he did lay charges against several individuals. And if I remember the quotation, he said, the quotation goes on to say, including Mr. Gordhan or Minister Gordhan. But in his later affidavits, he then, of course, confirms that I was not amongst the names that he had indicated in that complaint. Of course, I was none the wiser, because we had no access to the actual documents lodged at the Brooklyn police station. And secondly, that only became apparent when the documentation became available through the offices of the Commission itself. So there's that discrepancy, if you like, about whether, in fact, and the words, as you know, Chairperson, complaint and charge gets mixed in various passages, in various documents as well. But I believe the technical terminology is that that was a complaint, and the charges actually that followed, lodged by the NPA on the 11th of October 2016, and then withdrawn on the 31st of October 2016, were in relation to the pension fund and not the investigation unit itself. So that's another set of facts that are material up to a point in this context. And the third is the fiscal implications of a revenue service that now has, or as a result of various actions taken during Mr. Moyane's term of office as Commissioner of SARS, and as a result further of the dismantling of various capabilities and institutions that were set up within SARS, which advanced tax compliance generally in the country and led to increased revenues being collected, that dismantling of some of those or the reorganization of some of those entities actually resulted in loss of capability. So I suppose people at SARS today can tell you how many auditors, how many debt collectors, how many experts in corporate taxation that were assembled over a period of time in the 2000s left SARS, either being forced to or not wishing to be associated with the kind of developments that were taking place. The consequence of all of that, Chair, is that tax compliance is now lower than what it used to be, which means that what we used to refer to as the tax gap, meaning the gap between revenue due and revenue to be collected, grew rather than was being narrowed as it was being during that period and after that period as well. And so today, the new commissioner and management at SARS would have an additional task of rebuilding the capability and capacity on the one hand, but on the other hand, encouraging quite a different level of tax compliance compared to the period when Mr. Moyane was there as well. And that has serious consequences in terms of, if one would like to say, balancing the national books between what revenue comes in, what expenditure takes place, and what borrowing has to happen in order to enable that expenditure to take place. And the consequences are felt by ordinary people in South Africa at a day-to-day level. So that's a whole topic in its own right. In respect of what happens when, under the guise of one or other narrative, institutional deterioration takes place, not accidentally, but with intention, and possibly through a misguided belief that those actions would serve a particular cause. In retrospect, it only served the cause of what today we know as state capture and institutional deterioration and destruction, as opposed to actually helping the country to be in a better position to deal with what we now know as the COVID pandemic itself. I'm going to pause there, Chair, because there might be many other things as well. So I'm not sure what Mr. Chaskelson has in mind, but those would be some instances.
Yes, Mr. Chaskelson.
Chair, before I ask further questions, if I can just give one cross-reference.
Before you do that, can I just confirm that the question you had posed to Mr. Gordhan, to which he was responding, was whether there were any other facts of which he had personal knowledge, on which he relied for his belief that Mr. Moyane was pursuing a state capture agenda during his time as SARS Commissioner. Was that in effect the question?
That was the essence of my question, to distinguish between facts within his personal knowledge and facts which he may have seen from elsewhere, and also specifically related to the belief that he expresses that Mr. Moyane was pursuing state capture. I do want to draw that distinction, Minister Gordhan, because this commission is not concerned with whether Mr. Moyane's actions were good or bad for SARS. It is just concerned with the question of whether Mr. Moyane's actions at SARS were motivated by a a desire to pursue state capture. So I think it's very important to keep those issues separate.
But also I wanted
May I respond to that?
Before you respond to that, please don't forget what you wanted to say, Mr. Gordhan. In answering Mr. Chaskalson's question, did you understand the question to be the one that I've just articulated and which he has confirmed?
You've given it a bit more clarity, Chair. So I can add one or two elements, and I would like to, if I may, comment on Mr. Chaskalson's point about the Commission focusing on state capture and not what happened within SARS itself, if I may.
Sorry, Minister Gordhan, that wasn't the distinction that I was seeking to make. It's a distinction between whether Mr. Moyane was motivated by a desire to pursue state capture, which is what the Commission is concerned with, and what the consequences of Mr. Moyane's actions were for SARS, which for the most part is not an issue with which the Commission is concerned. Assessing whether Mr. Moyane was good or bad for SARS is not primarily a focus of this Commission, certainly not a focus of today's cross-examination.
Yes, I think Mr. Mpofu has been covered, or has he not? He wanted to say something. Okay, let them sanitize before you, otherwise if you can speak, if it's a brief point, you could speak from where you were. Okay.
Good afternoon, Chairperson.
Yes.
Yes. No, Chairperson, I wanted to just raise an objection. I don't know what's going on now. We are here for the cross-examination of Mr. Gordhan. I understood that there was a clarificatory statement that was going to be gone through, so that is part of the record, which really should not take long. But what is now happening is a rehash of Mr. Gordhan's evidence, and him reading long passages from affidavits that are already before the Commission. No useful purpose can be served by that except to waste time. And then Mr. Gordhan goes on reading 10 points from some email which have nothing to do with the question. So if we're going to go at this rate, and then he only gets told after the long rambling that he didn't answer the question, then that's going to detrimentally affect the pace and progress of the cross-examination. So, Chair, I mean, Mr. Gordhan has given this evidence here. He gave it for over 2 days. If the evidence leaders did not ask those questions so that they can focus his evidence, which I charge they did not, because they allowed him to go on and on, you can't have another chance now to do what was done in November 2018. Secondly, Mr. Gordhan has given this evidence of vilifying Mr. Moyane about his performance and business centers and what have you. He gave that evidence, unabated at the Nugent Commission. So I don't know why he must give it for the third or the fourth time now. Thank you.
Maybe, okay, Miss.
Sorry, Chair.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's fine. Let me hear what Mr. Chaskalson has to say. I've noted that Ms. Leroux doesn't wish to say anything. Mr. Chaskalson?
Chair, I'm right at the end of this process. I appreciate that the purpose of today is not to afford Mr. Gordhan a new attempt to give evidence. It's essentially to summarize his clarificatory statement, which wasn't in the record already.
But I must say that my understanding, I thought the reason behind your question was to see whether apart from saying he bases his belief that Mr. Moyane was pursuing a state capture agenda, apart from saying that he bases his belief on Judge Nugent's findings, whether there were also any personal matters of facts of which he had personal knowledge on which he was basing it. And I thought that was connected with paragraph 28 because I wasn't sure whether that was meant to say, well, that might not be in the findings of Judge Nugent, but it's part of what informs my base. I thought that it was intended to clarify that.
It was really to narrow the purpose of the question was to narrow the ambit of today's hearing to facts that are within Mr. Gordhan's personal knowledge, upon which he bases his reasoning, as opposed to facts which the Commission will have to find elsewhere or not find elsewhere, on which he relies.
Okay, all right. No, that's fine.
But in addition to that, the purpose of that question has already been served. Mr. Gordhan has identified what facts are within his personal knowledge. The last topic that I want to address with Mr. Gordhan
Sorry, Chair, may I intervene?
Yes. Yes.
No, if I can summarize in 6 points, maybe that would help. It would take a minute and a half.
Yes.
The point that Mr. Chaskerson addressed, and also to assist Advocate Mpofu as well in relation to what he had to say. So the first point, Chair, which is also...
Sorry, Minister Gordhan, before you go down those 6 points, can I ask you to confine yourself to facts within your personal knowledge? That's the exercise that I want to...
Okay.
Yes, I will.
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Gordhan.
So the issue is one of state capture, Chairperson. Subsequent to my evidence in November 2018, I now have experience in various state-owned enterprises and the kind of impact that activities related to what we today call state capture, what they result in, what the consequences are, and if the Commission is interested, we can talk about that. But there's a pattern, as I indicated in November 2018 as well, but that pattern is reinforced by experiences subsequently. So that's my first point. My second point is in relation to the complaint stroke charges, which I've already expanded upon. My third point is the issue of accountability, simple matters like application for leave, etc., which I'm sure Mr. Mpofu is going to come back to. My fourth point is in relation to SARS operations, and I do have personal knowledge of what was set up and what appears to be the changes thereafter. The fifth point is in relation to what you referred to, or somebody referred to, Chairperson, the dismantling of certain entities like the large business center. I think Mr. Mpofu referred to it. I didn't give evidence as far as I can recall before the Nugent Commission on that, so you might want to check his facts. I went through the presentation I made to the Nugent Commission last night, and I merely explained how SARS worked in its various dimensions. And my last point, which will also, I imagine, emerge in the cross-examination, is that Mr. Moyane was in possession of various forms of exculpatory evidence, both in relation to the so-called pension issue and the investigatory unit issue, which did not make itself known or was not publicly opened up to until it was very late in the day, so to speak. So those are my 6 points, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chaskerson.
I'm going to try and bring us back to the terms of reference for today, which are set out in your ruling, Chair.
Yes.
Where the chairperson has identified the ambit of today's hearing to to deal with 5 issues. The first is whether in laying the criminal complaint or charges against Mr. Gordhan, Mr. Moyane acted maliciously. Now, it now appears to be common cause that Mr. Moyane did not lay a complaint against you. Do you accept that?
Yes.
B, again, whether in laying the criminal complaint against Mr. Gordhan, Mr. Moyane was motivated wholly in part, etc. It's common cause there wasn't a criminal complaint against you. C, same story, it relates to a criminal complaint that wasn't laid against you. You've explained why you believed that there was one. D, whether as Commissioner of SARS, Mr. Moyane sought to advance the state capture project. And E, whether Mr. Moyane's personal goals while he was SARS Commissioner included the advancement of the state capture project. I'd like us to emphasize D and E because it seems to me that at this stage, that is what the ambit of today's hearing should focus on, no more and no less, because A, B, and C are based on a supposition which turned out not to be correct.
Chair, for the reasons that I've outlined, it wasn't out of intent. There was lack of information that was available at that particular point in time, firstly, and if I may repeat, the so-called 27 questions that came from the Hawks prior to the 2016 national budget made reference to a case number, which is the same case number as the complaint lodged by Mr. Moyane. And my last point, which I've made before as well, is that the true nature of the complaint and the persons indicated in that complaint only became apparent once the documentation was available through the Commission. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Those were all the questions that I wanted to ask.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mpofu, you now have the opportunity to cross-examine Mr. Gordhan.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
When we were...
Oh, good afternoon.
Good afternoon already.
Yes.
When we were in chambers, you said that you would give an indication at this point with respect to duration of the cross-examination.
Yes.
We'd previously been advised that it was likely to be around 2 hours.
Well,
you said you would give an indication on whether the further evidence this morning had changed that for you.
Yeah, no, actually.
If we could just get that clarity, we'd be indebted.
The last thing I said was that after Mr. Chaskalson has finished leading Mr. Gordhan on the clarificatory affidavit, I will adjourn and we would have a discussion about the duration in chambers. Maybe we should do that quickly. Mr. Mpofu, is that fine? Yeah, okay. Mr. Gordhan, we are going to adjourn for a very short time, maybe 5 minutes, and to discuss the duration of the cross-examination, and then we are going to resume after that. We adjourn.
All right.
I see Mr. Gordhan is not back on the screen yet. We'll have to wait for him.
I'm back, Chairperson.
You are back. Okay, all right. After discussing with all the legal teams, with regard to the duration of Mr. Gordhan's cross-examination by Mr. Mpofu, I have provisionally fixed 2 hours, which is not going to be rigid. I've said that at the expiry of the 2 hours, I will assess the situation and may have discussion with the legal teams as to whether it's necessary to add, and if so, add how much. So that's what I've said. So we are going to start now, and then at 1 it will be lunch. So Mr. Mpofu's first hour will finish at 2:30, and then the second hour at 3:30. So around about 3:30, we will then look at the situation again. I also want to emphasize, having discussed with the legal teams, that the scope of the cross-examination is subject to what I will say just now, set out in paragraph 28 of my ruling of 25 November 2019. That is the second ruling. Mr. Chaskalson did refer to this paragraph just before we adjourned, and I'm going to read it for the benefit of everybody, including the public. It said in 28.1, subject to 2 below, but I won't go to 2 below because it's not relevant for today. Mr. Moyane is hereby granted leave to cross-examine Mr. Gordhan on A, whether in laying the criminal complaint or charges against Mr. Gordhan, Mr. Moyane acted maliciously. B, whether in laying the criminal complaint against Mr. Gordhan, Mr. Moyane was motivated wholly or in part by or he sought to advance the objectives of state capture. C, whether in laying the criminal complaint against Mr. Gordhan, Mr. Moyane was abusing a legal process for his own personal goals that had either nothing or little to do with a legitimate complaint relating to an alleged crime. D, whether as Commissioner of SARS, Mr. Moyane sought to advance the state capture project. E, whether Mr. Moyane's personal goals while he was SARS Commissioner included the advancement of the state capture project. As I understand the position, Mr. Gordhan has indicated that A to C, as far as he is concerned, have fallen away, and I think as far as Mr. Chaskalson is concerned, in the light of the clarification that Mr. Gordhan gave about what had happened, Mr. Chaskalson said really as far as he is concerned what remains is D and E. Now Mr. Mpofu has said that he will have some questions for Mr. Gordhan in regard to A to C, although they would not take a lot of time. But other than that, there is common understanding that the main issues are those that fall under D and E of paragraph 28 of that ruling. Okay, Mr. Mpofu, did I capture that correctly as you understood it as well?
Chairperson, yes, you did.
Yes.
If I may, Chair, before you run the clock.
Yes.
Just,
yeah.
Chair, just a few remarks. One is that we don't accept implicitly that A to C have fallen away, and I'll I'll deal with that in questioning Mr. Gordhan.
Yes,
To
yes.
clarify, and then maybe I might address the chair
Yeah.
on that. What we do, of course, accept, Chair, that even when you gave your ruling, the accent of your ruling was on, let's say, D to E.
Yes.
In the sense that, but our approach is that the five things are completely interrelated. One
Yes.
cannot separate from them.
Yes.
But in fairness to the chair, you did say at paragraph 26, an allegation that someone performed his or her duties in order to advance the state capture project is a serious allegation, and those facing such an allegation should be given an opportunity to defend themselves against it. And you also said at 27, I consider that subject to one condition, it is in the interest of the work of the commission to grant Mr. Moyane leave to cross-examine. Then you went on to say, before this commission, it must rank as the most serious allegation or statement for it to be said that you performed your official duties in order to advance the objectives of state capture, and speaking generally, such a person should be granted leave to cross-examine. So at least we agree.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
On that part.
I use the words fallen away in regard to A to C, but Mr. Chaskalson might not have used that term.
Yes.
So, yeah, okay.
Yes, no, but I know what the chair means.
Yeah.
And maybe I can clarify it as follows. Good afternoon, Mr. Gordhan. Good afternoon.
Mr. Gordhan, can you hear Mr. Mpofu? Oh, we can't hear you, Mr. Gordhan.
Yeah, I thought he was addressing you, Chairperson.
Oh,
Good afternoon, Mr.
Oh, he has greeted you.
I
Yeah.
was addressing you, Mr. Gordhan. Okay, where are you today?
Beg your pardon?
Where are you?
I'm at home.
Okay. And is there a reason why you did not grace us with your physical presence today?
On medical advice.
Medical advice. Okay. Now, I just want to clarify this point that the chair was dealing with now. Effectively, your thesis is that Mr. Moyane was motivated by, let's call it, state capture motives in doing various things that you testified about in the commission and elsewhere, correct?
So, Chair, if I may clarify that, in my evidence before the Commission in November 2018, at paragraph 11 onwards, I described what is state capture, and the point I'm making, in sum, is that there are various activities that constitute ultimately to be defined as state capture. So we're talking about two things. The first is a concept called state capture, which I clarified in my evidence before you in November 2018, and what history has taught and the South African lessons have taught us about activities that constitute ultimately what became known as state capture. So if I look at the activities that were undertaken at the South African Revenue Service during Mr. Moyane's term of office, those activities tend to match the activities that fall under the definition of state capture.
Yes. Okay, look, please, if you are able to just answer yes or no when you agree with the proposition, that will help us to save time. The question was
No, sure. When I can, Chair, I will certainly say yes,
Yes.
or no.
Please do.
But where I think clarity is required, Chair, with your permission, I will add a line or two.
Yes.
Yes.
It might help Mr. Mpofu
Yeah.
as well. Thank
No,
you.
I don't need your help, Mr. Gordhan. I will ask you questions. If the question is clear, you must just answer yes or no. Of course, if you want clarification, the chair will stop me if I try to block you. I asked you a very simple question. Your entire outlook is that Mr. Moyane was motivated by a state capture motive in performing his duties. That's just what you said in many affidavits. So a yes would do.
Yes, as I indicated earlier, Chairperson.
Thank you. Now, you also said, and Mr. Chaskalson led you to this, that you say that Mr. Moyane's complaint that led to criminal charges was part of the state capture motive, correct?
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
with the limited knowledge that was available there.
No, fair enough. The point is that you were not really saying that it's the charges that he laid against you per se, but that his complaint, which led to, it was his complaint that led to the criminal charges. There may have been other things, but it triggered the process that led to the criminal charges, correct?
Yes,
Yes. So therefore, and when he laid that complaint, that was part of his official duties that he was performing, correct?
could you repeat that, please?
When he laid the complaint against those people at Brooklyn Police Station, it was part of performing his official duties, correct?
I don't accept that.
Did he do it just as a person or as a commissioner of SARS?
Well, I think Mr. Moyane is in the best position to explain himself when he gives his major evidence before the Commission, Chair.
Well, okay, to your knowledge now, I accept that you say earlier you were not au fait with the facts. To your knowledge now, you know that he laid that complaint in his capacity as Commissioner of SARS, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, therefore, the artificial line that is sought to be drawn between what you call, whether in laying the criminal complaint or charges, and I do understand that it was not against Mr. Gordhan, let's say against anyone. But your view is that in laying the criminal complaint, Mr. Moyane acted maliciously, correct?
As I said earlier, Chair, that he was acting, that was one action amongst many others that constituted, in my view, his contribution to the state capture process.
Thank you very much. Okay, and let's go to B. So, and also saying in laying the complaint again, we can take out the words against Mr. Gordhan, we say against X, Y, or Z. Mr. Moyane was motivated wholly or in part, or he sought to advance the objectives of state capture. You stand by that in laying the criminal complaint, he was motivated wholly or in part, or he sought to advance the objectives of state capture, correct?
It's correct in the context of all the other activities that he undertook, yes.
Yes, thank you. And then the third one is whether in laying the criminal complaint, again, we take out the words against Mr. Gordhan, against those other people, Mr. Moyane was abusing a legal process for his own personal goals that he had either nothing or little to do with a legitimate complaint relating to an alleged crime. You also stand by that?
Well, that's not my formulation. The concept of personal goals, Chairperson, how does one draw the line, which has mystified me, between what one does as a person when holding a particular official position or any position, and what one does by playing a role in that particular position. So I don't know what the word personal means in that context,
Well,
but if you say that he as a person did certain things, yes. But I don't know about what personal means.
no, but if you don't know what personal goals are, these are your words, Mr. Gordhan. If you go to page TSM 787, the one that you read out in front of...
Just to confirm, we are still using the same bundle
that's correct, Chair.
that we
Yes.
that was referred to earlier.
What is the number, Mr. Mpofu?
TSM-787. It's the one that you read out now to the Commission.
Actually, Mr. Mpofu, we can just ignore TSM.
We just use the numbers, yes.
The number, yeah.
Thank you. That will
What's
save us
the number?
time. 787.
787. Okay. Have you got it, Mr. Gordhan?
So again, Chair, this 22.4 is the paragraph that Mr. Mpofu is referring to.
No, that's not the one.
Hang on one second.
The one?
Hang on one second. Mr. Mpofu, do you want to
Take him through. Yes.
articulate your question again in relation to page
Yes,
787?
thank you, Chair. And yes, the witness said that he doesn't know what personal goals mean. So I was just pointing out that those are the words he used in a statement under oath. You said that 22.5. I believe that Mr. Moyane's personal goals while he was SARS Commissioner included the advancement of the state capture project. And you did that under oath, you remember?
Oh, no, absolutely. So,
Yes.
Chairperson, can I first draw your attention to 22.4?
Well, maybe
In which
before you
say
do,
the following.
maybe before you do that,
May I call that, Chairperson?
before you do that, Mr. Gordhan, Mr. Mpofu, maybe we should just for completeness mention that in 22.5, personal goals is in quotes.
Yes.
Yes, okay, all right.
I
Mr.
do.
Gordhan, you wanted to say something about 22.4?
So, for the benefit of the public as well, this is what I say, and of course affidavits are under oath, I think most people understand that, and I quote, "To use the words of the chairperson's directions, I therefore do mean that Mr. Moyane, quotation mark, was motivated wholly or in part, or he sought to advance the objectives of state capture," end of quote, and that, the beginning of a new quote, he was abusing a legal process for his own personal goals that had either nothing or little to do with a legitimate complaint relating to an alleged crime, close quotation. So when you look at personal goals in that context, it is a person who is advancing the objectives of state capture.
Yes.
And the quotation, Mr. Mpofu, is a quotation of the chairperson. So
Yeah, I know.
clarify that to the public.
Listen, I know what a quotation is. I'm saying to you, in those two paragraphs, you voluntarily adopted those words, even though they were originally used by the chairperson. Nobody forced you to adopt them. You used them in both 22.4 and 22.5, and therefore you can't tell us that you don't know what personal goals are, correct?
So what I was doing here, Chair, is in the context of 22.4 and 22.5, explaining that the personal goals in this context, as described through the quotation referred to yourself, Chairperson, is in the context of advancing state capture.
Yes,
That's
thank
the
you.
point I was making there, but my earlier remarks were, if you like, in a more abstract sense.
Yeah, well, okay.
Thank you.
And anyway, yes, thank you very much. The question really was whether you stand by the statement in C, which was whether in laying the criminal complaint, Mr. Moyane was abusing a legal process for his own personal goals that had either nothing or little to do with a legitimate complaint relating to an alleged crime. And you stand by that?
No, I stand by the fact that Mr. Moyane, in his position, was advancing state capture, and that one of the activities in that process was to lay the complaint.
Thank you.
Maybe just to make sure I follow, what was your understanding of the reference to personal goals in the chairperson's directions?
Is that with reference to myself, Chairperson?
Yes, yes. In 22.4, there is a quotation. Sorry?
Sorry.
Yes, I just want to to make sure I understand what your own understanding was of what the chairperson was referring to when he was referring to Mr. Moyane's personal goals.
So I was just drawing a distinction, Chairperson, between an abstract concept of how does one distinguish between personal goal and, if you like, professional goal. That was part A.
Yeah.
Part B is with reference to 22.4 and 22.5, and there my understanding was a person who advances of his own volition the objectives of state capture as we know it today.
Okay, all right. Mr. Mpofu?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just wanted, just for the sake of the record, to correct you, Chair. The words that the witness was using in his affidavit were taken from the Chair's directive,
Yes.
not from the ruling. Remember, the affidavit came before the ruling.
Yes.
Just for...
Oh, was I the one who said the ruling, or you were the one?
No, you said when the Chair said in his ruling, yes. Just for the record.
No, that's true, yeah. It was from the directions, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Right. Anyway, the point is that you stand by all the sentiments expressed from A to E, except, of course, the technicality that the charges were not laid directly against you, but it was a complaint that led to the criminal charges. Are we still together?
Yes.
Thank you. Right. Now, so let us, apart from that, I really had hoped that we were going to start on a positive note, Mr. Gordhan, which is on things that I think we agree on. You agree, and I know you gave a definition, but you agree that this notion of state capture is a political term or a South African term for crimes, really, crimes like corruption, fraud, money laundering, and so on.
Chairperson, this is not a South African term. State capture has a long history in international literature on corruption, etc., that takes place largely through procurement measures. And of course, in paragraph 16 of my evidence before you in November 2018, I say the following, and with your permission, I want to quote it. A useful conceptual framework for understanding events and the phenomenon of state capture has been developed by the group of academics who published the Betrayal of Promise report and the recent book, The Shadow State, The Politics of State Capture. It envisages various groupings that perform different roles in state capture and patronage networks, and it goes on to, from 16.1, explain the key role players.
No, that's fine.
If you look at the literature...
Mr. Gordhan, please. Hello? No, if you can just answer my question. I don't want your...
I'm answering your question.
No, the question is either you agree with...
It's not just the South African term.
Do you agree that it's corruption or fraud or on crimes like that, yes or no?
I think, Chairperson, it might be very useful if Mr. Mpofu wants yes or no answers, then he must ask one question at a time.
That's one question. Do you agree with that it's crimes like corruption and fraud?
Hang on, Mr. Mpofu. Let him finish. I don't think it's going to take long to finish what he was saying.
I think it's going to take long.
Yes. I'm not going to allow him to take long, but
thank you.
Just finish how you were capturing state capture as an international concept as you understand it, Mr. Gordhan. What was it you were about to finish?
What I want to say is that it doesn't only have South African origins, it has international origins, and it largely started with the people working at the World Bank many years ago who observed similar phenomena elsewhere in the world. And there's a famous author called Professor Hellman who authored some of the texts. So that's the first point I'm making.
Okay.
The second point is the answer is yes, it relates to, amongst other things, corruption and related activity.
Yes. Okay. Just for your own edification, when I say South African term, I meant as it is used in the context of this commission. State capture actually didn't even come from the World Bank. It came from a gentleman called Lenin, who advances the theory of capturing the state. But that's a discussion for another day. But as far as this commission is concerned, you agree that it relates to things like corruption, fraud, and money laundering? Yes.
Amongst other activities.
Amongst others, yes. And it involves, I think, as you have said, stealing from the poor. And if you steal, for example, money that was meant for a hospital or a school, literally, it can lead to people dying. It's a serious matter.
Chair, I'm not sure whether that's a statement or a question.
It's a question. You can say yes or no.
Just articulate it again, Mr. Mbo, for the question.
When such corruption, fraud, and theft relates to, for example, let's say stealing money that was meant to build a hospital, we could say that state capture is such a serious thing that it could lead to people actually dying or suffering. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that it's a very serious matter. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. And actually, if you look at it in its proper context, it's that idea of stealing from the poor would be, particularly in a country with a history like ours, tantamount to treason, correct?
I'll leave that to the lawyers, Chairperson.
Well, it's a serious crime that in many places would even have a capital offense. In fact, in other countries it does, correct? A capital punishment.
Again, I leave that to the lawyers.
No, well, to your knowledge, you don't know that it's a serious crime.
No, it's a terrible thing to do. That's why I imagine.
Thank you. That's not just for lawyers.
Let him finish. Let him finish. Yes.
Or is Mr. Mpofu going to do all the talking? With respect.
Yes. Yeah. Give your answer.
You don't have to be arrogant, Mr. Gordhan.
I understand it.
You don't have to be arrogant. I'm not going to do all the talking. You are the one who's being cross-examined, so you'll do the talking if you answer my questions.
Okay, Mr. Mpofu. Mr. Gordhan, just give your answer.
Now, all I'm saying, Chairperson, is that Mr. Mpofu is absolutely right that state capture, but more importantly, the activities that take place under this umbrella is a very serious matter, and that is the matter that as Deputy Chief Justice and Chairperson of this Commission, you are charged with to both investigate and evaluate, both in terms of the actions taken by various people, but also the consequences of the actions as well. So clearly, in the South African context, it's very serious.
Thank you.
Whether the stealing happens at a municipal level, provincial level, national level, or indeed in the private sector as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. And therefore, when you make an accusation against somebody that they are mired or they are practitioners of state capture, it's a very serious accusation because you are accusing them of something that is, as you say, despicable, correct?
Well, the formulation I used earlier, Chairperson, is that in this particular instance, the activities that took place at SARS under Mr. Moyane was his contribution, and those were my words as I recall them earlier on, to the phenomenon of state capture. And if I'm given an opportunity later, I'll explain what I mean. But
yes.
Yeah. No, that context.
You will be given an opportunity. If you just please, it will help all of us. Listen to the question and then answer it. I've not said anything about Mr. Moyane yet. I will just now. I'm saying, since you and I agree that state capture is such a serious and despicable thing, to accuse someone of being a player or a practitioner of state capture then makes it a serious accusation. Anyone, correct?
I imagine those are the people that must appear before this commission and make their views known and be cross-examined, yes.
Is your answer yes?
Mr. Mpofu, I will try my best to answer yes or no, but it depends on the formulation
Okay,
of the question.
the question,
I've given you my answer.
the question is whether an accusation that somebody was engaging in certain activities in pursuit of state capture is a serious accusation, whether you agree that it is a serious accusation. I imagine that you agree based on what you have said before.
Yes, Chairperson, as I explained.
Yes, okay.
Thank you very much. And therefore, such a serious accusation is not to be lightly made against a person, even if you hate that person, correct?
Even if, Mr. Mpofu?
Even if you hate that person.
No. The question or the proposition is such as an allegation is not an allegation that should be lightly made, even if you hate that person. That's the question is whether you agree with that proposition.
Is the word preceding that person, is it hate?
Hate, yeah, hate, yeah.
H-A-T-E.
Hate, yeah. Even
No,
if you hate that
there
person.
are two different issues here, Chairperson. The first is, yes, it's a serious allegation. The second, hatred has got nothing to do with this. This is an objective exercise.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, okay, in the performance of that objective exercise, it would be important, given the seriousness, that before you accuse someone of state capture, you better have evidence, correct?
No, it could be evidence, it could be a perception, it could be a conclusion. For example, the public might think that person X is involved in state capture, but it's a collection of information rather than evidence that they have, and they could well draw that conclusion. So in some instances, it is information, in other instances, it might well be evidence.
Okay, let me ask it maybe differently. Before you accuse someone under oath in a commission such as this, or in statements of state capture being such a serious matter, it would be better if you have evidence and not just relying on gossip, correct?
No, gossip is a terrible thing to rely on.
And you agree that you should have evidence?
So there must be facts that are fitting the picture, if you like.
Yeah, Mr.
You reach the conclusion on.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Gordhan. I don't know why you have a problem with such a simple thing. If you accuse someone of a serious thing, rape, murder, state capture, under oath, you better have evidence. It's a simple thing, yes?
Yes, obviously, you will provide facts that lead to evidence being... The word evidence has legal connotations. That's the only point I'm making, Chairperson. But so I'm saying, yes, there must be a collection of facts and there will be other collections of information.
Otherwise known as evidence.
I'll take your word for it.
Thank you. Okay. Now, one of the...
Well, I see we are at one, Mr. Mpofu.
Well,
but if you have one more question to ask before we adjourn, that would be fine, or one or two, that's fine.
Chair,
what would you like?
You know, a cross-examiner's 1-2 questions can be... Chair, I will indicate, when we get to a natural place, I will indicate.
No, that's
just
fine.
on this topic.
We can take even 10 minutes or so,
good,
if that's
good, Chair.
but I just want to alert you.
To alert me,
yeah.
yes. No, Chair, I will, in fact, this theme, I'm just about to end it, and then maybe we'll stop even before the 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, I was saying, again, coming to the South African context, one of the telltale signs of somebody involved in the kind of state capture activities that the chairperson is investigating would be meeting with the Guptas, correct?
I'm not sure where that is going, but...
Don't worry about where it's going, just answer the question.
Just for my benefit, just
Can you
repeat the
repeat
question.
for me, please, so I can
One, in the South African context, one of the telltale signs that we use to determine that someone was involved in state capture is if they had a meeting or meetings with the Guptas or visited their compound. Those are some of the telltale signs, correct?
Visiting the compound might well be one of the telltale signs.
Yes, I knew you were going to go for that one. I knew you were going to go for that one. Why are you jumping the one of meeting the Guptas?
Because the word meeting means many things, as I've explained in my affidavit, or rather, my statement in November 2018, that there were, for example, New Age breakfasts that ministers, including myself, attended once or twice.
Yes.
When the president at the time was attending those in order to support him to answer questions if questions arose in a particular portfolio. In the second instance, if you walk into a room and the Gupta person is present and you obviously are told, yes, so and so, and you meet the person. But there are other instances where you conspire with the Guptas. That's a very different category.
No, Mr. Gordhan, please, it will help you, me, and the chair if you listen to the question. I'm not talking about you, about meetings with, at dinners or whatever. I'm saying, do you agree or do you disagree that in South Africa, one of the telltale signs that we use is to determine if a person had meetings with the Guptas? Is that one of the telltale signs, not the only one, or yes or no?
It depends on the context.
All right, maybe let me put it this way. In Parliament, you were asked by the DA if you had met with the Guptas, correct?
Yes.
And you said you never met with them, correct?
In a particular context, yes.
Yes. Now, all I'm saying is, I'm not getting there now. I'm saying one of the reasons that the DA or any opposition parties would ask you that question is because one of the telltale signs of people being involved in state capture in South Africa is meeting with the Guptas. They were not asking you just for fun, correct?
Well, I don't know what their intentions are. The DA must come and...
What do you think? What do you think their intentions were when you answered the question?
I'm not here to speculate.
Okay, well, I'm putting it to you then that they were asking you because of what you are avoiding to answer, which I don't understand, that one of the signs is meeting with the Guptas. But let's move on. So the you had to change your statement to the commission to reflect that you did meet with the Guptas, correct?
Yes, on the reminder that I received from my then Chief of Staff, who currently is the DG of the Treasury, Mr. Moyane.
Yes, so like Mr. Nene, before you had forgotten, quote unquote, that you had met with the Guptas, correct?
I'm not interested in any analogies.
Okay, that's fine, forget the analogy. You had, quote unquote, forgotten that you had met with the Guptas a number of times, correct?
There's no quote unquote as far as I'm concerned. I did not remember. I was reminded, and I frankly disclosed that in Parliament subsequently and to the Commission when I had the opportunity.
No, Mr. Gordhan.
There's no quote or unquote forgotten.
Okay, no, let's just be serious for a minute.
Just for emphasis.
No, that's fine. Let's be. You answered the question of the DA and you said you didn't meet with the Guptas, correct?
Well, I can't remember the precise formulation of the question.
Yes, but you denied. I'm not interested in the precise formulation.
During lunchtime.
I'm sorry.
Can you please, Chairperson?
Yes.
I do require some guidance from you.
Yeah.
If you could reflect on this, please. When I am answering a question,
Yeah, no.
to be given the opportunity
No.
to answer, not be interrupted.
No, I was about to say, Mr. Mpofu must let you finish your answer, but I think we must take the lunch break now, Mr. Mpofu.
No, Chair, can I just finish just this theme?
How much time will it require?
2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, all right. But just remember, when he answers, let him finish, and when you ask questions, he will also let you.
Yeah, he must also let me finish.
Yes.
That's fine, Chair. We are trying to rush against the clock here.
No, that's fine.
And the reason why I'm asking questions like this, Mr. Gordhan, is to make it easier, because when I frame the question, it's because I don't want, a long answer. It's a way of trying to focus the cross-examination, but that's fine. I'm sorry if I interrupted you. The question I was asking you is that you denied meeting the Guptas. I agree, you can't remember the exact formulation, but when you answered the DA, you denied, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And then after, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Carry on.
Carry on, Mr.
Do you want to clarify that yes?
I said, Chairperson, I said yes, and I said that is on the record.
Yes.
And as I said previously, I had no recollection of anybody from the Gupta family being present when I met Mr. Ambani during that time. My chief of staff, former chief of staff, when I was formulating the statement for the November presentation to you, 2018, he reminded me of this, and I disclosed it to you.
Yes.
If I wanted to hide it, I could have hidden it, but I disclosed it voluntarily.
You see,
for the record. Thank you.
See, Chairperson, really, I
Yes.
ask the Chairperson to please control this witness,
Yes.
because if he's going to give unnecessary verbiage
Yes.
on top of the answer, then I'm going to be forced to
Next
interrupt.
question, Mr. Mpofu, so we can break for lunch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And when you did your first statement to the Commission, you still had forgotten meeting the Guptas, correct?
I'll check that during my lunchtime and come back to you.
But when you did your second statement, you had been reminded, you say?
As I said, I will check during lunchtime and come back to you.
All right. Now, okay, when we come back, Chair, I'm going to start with a theme that, if the Chair allows me, just to ask 2 questions.
Yeah,
So
okay.
just to again, in the line of, let's try to deal with the issues that you and I agree with. You would agree that the relationship between you and Mr. Moyane can be described as one of hostility, correct?
Not necessarily.
Those were your words, Mr. Gordhan. In your evidence, you said it was the evidence.
It later resulted.
So is it yes or not necessarily? What is the answer now?
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Gordhan. Are you saying it later resulted in hostility?
Yeah, I don't know who is guilty of verbiage here, Chair, but we'll leave that aside for now. My response is very simple, that I don't know Mr. Moyane at all, except that he was present at some meetings. And he happened to wear the Correctional Services uniform at these meetings prior to him being appointed as the SARS Commissioner. So why must I have hostility against somebody, or should that person have hostility against me, whom I didn't actually know? What I'm saying secondly, and very clearly and emphatically, is that as events unfolded during my tenure as Minister of Finance and his tenure during that time as SARS Commissioner, hostilities developed.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, okay, all right.
Yes. So when you said not necessarily, what did you mean? If the answer is yes. Yes, hostilities developed. No, not necessarily. What kind of answer was that?
It's exactly what I explained.
Yes, Mr. Gordhan, I think there's something technically wrong. We're not getting all the words from your answer. Do you want to repeat your answer?
So I said earlier, Chairperson, before Mr. Mpofu repeated his point, can you hear me clearly, Chairperson?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. So I was saying that I did not know Mr. Moyane prior to his appointment as the SARS Commissioner. That I knew who he was because he used to be, for example, what we call Cabinet Lakotla.
Okay, I think we had that part.
Wearing a correctional services uniform sometimes, and
I think we had that part, Mr. Gordhan. The part was what you meant when you said not necessarily. I think that was the part, yeah. Okay.
I'm coming to that now.
Yeah.
Which I've already said earlier on.
Yeah.
But for your benefit, I'm repeating it.
Yes.
The second point I'm making is that, in our first set of exchanges, there was no hostility. The third point I'm making is that during his tenure as SARS Commissioner, which SARS Commissioner is accountable to the Minister of Finance, hostilities did develop.
Okay.
You don't want to answer the question, I take it.
I think let's break if you want.
Yes, we can break at that point.
Then.
If you might use the lunch break also to think about, please answering my question. What did you meant by not necessarily? Thank you, Chair.
Yes, we are going to take the lunch. Yes.
Before you adjourn,
Yes.
may I address you, please?
Yes, you may.
I don't think Mr. Mpofu is helping this particular set of exchanges by throwaway remarks like that. I've just taken the time to repeat twice what I actually meant and said. And there are three elementary points. Can you think about that as well? Thank you, Chair.
Well, Mr. Gordhan, listen, before you go, obviously you cannot have hostilities with someone you do not know. We're not that infantile. All I was asking you is whether when you did have a relationship with Mr. Gordhan, it was hostile. I could not ask you about hostility with somebody that you did not know. Think about that.
But I don't know what,
okay.
Chair, with great respect, I don't know what Mr. Mpofu has in mind.
Don't worry about what I have in mind. I will reveal it to you.
Okay, let us do this. Let's adjourn for lunch. And if Mr. Mpofu wants to take the issue further, or if you want to say something about it, Mr. Gordhan, when we resume, we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Chair.
I think Mr. Gordhan, the technical problems, he might not have heard me. I see the pictures.
Oh, yes, it's frozen.
Yeah. But when I'm sure, when we come back, I will tell him what I said. Namely.
Yes, thank you. He has been unfrozen now.
Yeah, he's still frozen, yeah. Okay, we are going to adjourn, but he needs to hear what time we will come back.
Thank you, Chair.
Can you hear me now, Mr. Gordhan? No.
He's still frozen.
Can you hear me? No, it's still frozen.
Thank you, Chair.
We will, somebody in the legal team tell him what time we are coming back. We'll adjourn for lunch now, and we'll resume at 2:15. And if either Mr. Mpofu or Mr. Gordhan
Chair,
wants to...
Does that mean my request was not acceded to? The request I made in chambers of a shortened lunch break.
Oh, no, you remember you said either that or we add later. I said we'll add later if necessary.
So we still take the hour?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Mr. Gordhan, are you back?
Yes, I can hear you, Chair.
Did you hear everything that we have been saying? Because from our side, you were frozen like. You did hear everything?
No, I can hear you.
Okay, no, that's all right. Okay, all right. We'll resume at 2:15. We'll take the lunch adjournment. We adjourn.
Thank you, Chairperson.
All rise.